Good morning, folks. My brain tells me not to ask this, but I'm just used to this for the entire year. I hope you can see my screen there. Thank you for taking time to join Global Azure Conference 2021 India. This is a very exciting time for us. We thought we'd meet in person this year, but apparently not. But let's keep the show going. I'm glad you joined this session. We kickstart the track 2 with some emotional quotient around applications. A little about myself, like Amal said, I've been over 15 years in the industry now in various technical and leadership roles. With Velorum Reply for most of that time, we are a consulting company. We're based out of the US. We have offices all over the globe, and I work from their office in Kochi. And you can find me on social media in LinkedIn or Twitter, or I occasionally blog, and then I have my GitHub accounts as well. Cool. So let's get started. All right. So I think we'd all agree that every one of us has got our right to our opinions. And especially in the modern world that we live in, we have the freedom of communication of it as well. And currently in the world, there is no dearth of opinions, right? Especially with the social media and all. There's just so much of unstructured data that's available there in the market, in the industry. And a lot of it is really volunteered data. A customer or a consumer has every right to put in what he or she feels about a specific brand, a product, or a service. And all that data is really out there in the world. It's this universe of rich data, unstructured data that's out there. And if you kind of think about it, all this text, it's mineable, which means we can create insights, we can take insights out of that data. And most businesses, most organizations, our organizations, we know the ones that we work in, we're all very customer centric. And customer centric businesses, organizations really want to get insights out of this data so that they can build strategies around this insight, so they can better serve their customers and their consumers, right? And actually, a lot of customer service organizations have already started putting into use the techniques that we are going to discuss in the session today. So starting with that precursor, that we know that all text is inherently mineable, or we can actually mine the text, just like we mine for gold. Let's see how we can actually do any of this. So this is a pretty old clip, but let me know how many of you can actually relate to this. If you've seen this somewhere, you've had first-hand experience with this, or you've seen someone do this at all. And honestly, it's nothing to shy away from. Most of us, maybe in our personal or professional lives, especially in a customer service scenario, tend to run away and hide the minute we start getting feedback and reviews and all from our customers and our opinions. Right. And as I said, this must be a really old clip, but just as much as we say there's a lot that's changed in AI and the technological landscape and things like that, some things have just not changed, isn't it? And this kind of scenarios happen even today. So you're just literally running away from reviews and feedback. And possibly one of the reasons for that is people really can't make sense of opinions. You really don't understand what exactly the problem is. You're not fine-grained analysis is not happening. Let's start with a very simple example of customer feedback, right? So this is a hotel review, which is, of course, passed by a very agitated customer. And she says, I love the hotel location. I was disappointed that my room was not ready on arrival. Obviously, she had pre-booked it and it wasn't ready on arrival. And of course, you get to see a lot of this. And I do agree, she might be a little too dramatic for that, but that's how agitated customers can get at the drop of a hat. And at the outset, when you get a feedback of that sort, you kind of think that it is, there's a lot that's going on in there. I mean, she's talking about the location, she's talking about the room service, she's talking about, she's happy about something, she's not happy about another thing. And so what I did is I turned first off to the most powerful algorithm that I know personally in the world that exists today in solving such kinds of analysis issues. And that's the human brain. So I took to LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago and I posted an open poll there, and I asked people what they thought about this review. You know, what they thought, what the underlying sentiment was. And it was very interesting. There was a lot of traction on the poll. Some of them said it was positive. Some said you can't say for sure. A lot of them said it was negative, and they kind of stopped with that. And there was a lot of interesting comments on this post as well. And the reasons as to, you know, why they thought it was positive, why they thought it was negative, and why there was so much confusion in this. One of the learnings that I had from this exercise was, especially when a feedback or a review is multi-layered, like when you have a lot of polar sentiments and aspects being discussed in one single sentence itself, it gets a little tricky to understand what the underlying sentiment is. So if it was something as simple as, I love the hotel location, period, that was easy. If it was something like, I felt the room service was not good at all, that was easy. You put in a lot of things in there in one sentence, and perhaps in a couple of sentences in a paragraph, and imagine you have documents of such feedback to review and to analyze and take insights from. It's not going to be easy, right? Please hold on to this thought. We're going to come back to this problem statement in a while. Let's just see what's happening in a parallel universe. And while we are struggling with, you know, getting accurate, timely, and really quick insights into these reviews, here's what's happening in the alternate universe. So this is a visual from Gartner research. Gartner, most of you would be familiar with it for the Gartner hype cycle that we so look forward to every year around the corner. This year around recently, they've started building some really great other kind of visuals as well, and this is one of it. This talks to emerging technologies and trends impact radar, and for the right reasons, right? So the visual is in the form of a radar, and two aspects of this visual. One, not only are they plotting what the emerging technologies and trends are, they're actually plotting it per the time frame or the period or the range at which they think it's going to make an impact. Like if you start from the center, that's a yellow yolk, and that's where you have most of the technology, some good technologies there, but that's going to come up to speed in the next 0 to 1 year. And then you have from 1 to 3 years, 3 to 6 years, 6 to 8 years as you go across that spectrum. But also take a look at the size of those circles. So this mass of that circle is also important, because as big as circle is, it also relates to the impact that the technology can make. So let's kind of just zoom into that section that I'm most interested of what's going to happen right around the corner, like in the next 1 year or so. And you see a lot of good technologies happening in that yellow sphere, low-code applications like Power Platforms. We've got deep learning neural networks, edge AI, etc. The one that would probably relate to us for this particular session is Cloud AI Developer Services. Cloud AI Developer Services is let me demystify that. It's just services, AI services that are made available to a developer community, even though they do not have expertise with machine learning or data science skills. You can leverage these APIs in your application if you want to get started with artificial intelligence today. So there are a lot of cloud-hosted services and models that the developer community can tap into and just get started with AI into their applications. And honestly, there are a lot of partners, a lot of giants in the ecosystem that are actually providing these kind of services. And it's of no surprise that Microsoft has been one of the earliest to jump onto this bandwagon. If you look at the years of research that has actually come across in Microsoft research centers, like MSR centers across the globe, even India, MSR India. So over the last couple of decades, the cloud services, the AI developer services that have come out of these have been incredible. And to the extent that some of these services have even been able to achieve human parity, like in speech recognition or machine translation or machine reading comprehension, conversational Q&A. And lastly, the latest was around image captioning, which is around late 2020, that they achieved human parity, which means that a machine can now caption an image just as good as a human can, right? So that is the level of enterprise grade services that are coming out. And Microsoft has initially, they started putting it into their own services, into their own applications. So all the current generation Microsoft applications that we use today on a daily basis, like you go to Microsoft Word, you go to PowerPoint, you go to Excel, like just for designing this PowerPoint, I used a lot of design suggestions and ideas. All of that is just inherent AI just infused into these applications, right? Just built into it. And therefore, it's no surprise that actually Microsoft is a leader now in this space. So that's, again, the magic quadrant for cloud AI developer services. And in the top right corner, you'll see Microsoft along with Google, IBM, and AWS is one of the leaders in this space. And this is quite recent. This is from the Feb 2021 chart. What's interesting for us is that Microsoft has now democratized these services and made it available for developers like you and I to use them in our application. So the story doesn't stop there. How do they do that? They use a family of APIs and SDKs, and they bundle it into what's called Azure Cognitive Services. And these are now available for the developer community to use in their applications, which means you want to build an application as intelligent or as good as Wally, you probably have a chance today. So think about it just like some pre-built AI, right? So if you have no precedence with machine learning or data science skills, but still want to use these powerful models and services, you have a good luck with Azure Cognitive Services right now. It helps give that human side to your applications. So we always tend to talk about intelligence, right? How do we perceive intelligence? In fact, some of the things that make us humans really intelligent is our capabilities around vision, speech, language, our decision-making capabilities. Azure Cognitive Services are centered around these very categories. So under each of these categories, Azure Cognitive Services provides a ton of APIs that we can use. Like for vision, you can use computer vision, face, APIs for speech, you have translation, for decision-making, you have anomaly detectors. Again, we are super interested in the language services that are provided. And again, within language services, there's a lot going on, right? So there's so many language services that are meant for specific purposes. Like you have immersive readers, you have translator text. And for the sake of this session, we will quickly deep dive into just one of these language services, which is text analytics. No, just overwhelming, but just this lot again going on within text analytics itself. This service is so powerful enough that if you give it a sentence, a paragraph, or an entire document, it can come back extracting key phrases from that document. It can detect the language of that document. It can recognize entities. It can link entities. And most importantly, it can analyze the sentiment. It can analyze the sentiment to very granular levels, to the sentence level, right? And it can be done in multiple languages, using containers, etc. We're going to focus on just that sentiment analysis part, because that's where we need that tool to actually solve our problem statement. So sentiment analysis off the bat is a very, very simple API to use. It will simply take an input, that is either a sentence or a group of sentences or a document, and it will return a confidence score. This confidence score can range anywhere between 0 to 1. So more towards 0 is like a negative sentiment, more towards 1 is what you would think is a positive sentiment. And right at the center, you have like neutral, right? So based on the range or the confidence score that it returns, it could bucket that review as positive, negative, or neutral. So which bucket it belongs to really ties into what the score of that text is. Cool. Let's take a quick demo. Let me show you a quick demo of this as well. I can show you. There you go. So that is the text analytics. Don't worry about this. I will post references to this in my slide at the end, so you get to see where we're taking these demos from. But this is just the AI demo that's there from Microsoft. It's out there, and you can try this even today. Right? So this is available at aidemos.microsoft.com, and I'm in that site. So this is to just help you understand very quickly what the capabilities of this text analytics service is. You can flip this with your own text message, but I have a text message here, and let's see what it does. So my text message reads, Saturn is the 6th planet from the sun. It's the 2nd largest in the solar system. It's a gas giant with average radius about 9 times that of Earth. Perfect. And first step, as we saw in text analytics, one of the things that it does, it recognizes key phrases. So there you go. So you have a couple of key phrases. If you can see, it's colored in blue. So Saturn, planet, solar system, Jupiter, all this is identified as key phrases. And as we were expecting it to, it's analyzed the sentiment as well. This, if you kind of look about, it's a very factual statement. There isn't a lot of positivity or negativity around it. So the sentiment is apparently neutral, and this confidence score is 50%, which is why the sentiment is neutral. So there you have it. Just so we are here, I can just show you the entity linking as well. Not all key phrases will qualify as entities. So entities are those that are mostly like personal pronouns. And then you can link this, for example. Now, if it has recognized Saturn as an entity, and if you click that, it will actually go to deep link into Wikipedia, and you can actually see the details there. So you can feel inspired of how to use this in your respective applications. But let's go back and let's talk about this piece here, the sentiment analysis piece. Right? Okay, cool. So quick recap on, because I think we've discussed quite a bit here. So we saw about how cloud AI developer services is like, coming up to speed, and it's like the talk of the town. And that Microsoft has got some really solid offerings in this area, especially around cognitive services. We saw that there are quite a few cognitive service categories, vision, speech, language, decision-making. In the language services alone, there are, again, a couple of services, but we're going to take just text analytics piece. And within text analytics is where you will find the sentiment analysis piece, right? So the sentiment analysis, we will also take a look at some code later in the session today. But off the bat, now you know what it does. Like if you give it a piece of code, piece of text, sorry, it will come back with the sentiment of that piece of text. Two things I need to probably let you know about sentiment analysis, right? So typically what you would get to see in a production environment is you would just, it would not be one sentence or two sentences. You would just give it an entire document or maybe an Excel sheet of all so many things. Now, if you passed a one single document, I must say that there are a few caveats to how the document is going to come back labeled. So it is possible that there will be just most sentences can be of different polarities. So if you have one positive sentence and the rest of the sentences are just neutral, your document will have a label of positive. If you have one negative statement in your document, even if the rest of the sentences are neutral, if you have just one negative sentence, that entire document, your document is going to come back labeled negative. If all the sentences are neutral or well and good, then your document is neutral. But if there's a mixture of like positive and negative statements, your document is going to be labeled a fourth category called mixed. And so that's possibly something I did not tell you before. I just said that there's positive, negative, and neutral. So there's a fourth document label which is called mixed. So you can try and understand like how vast this could be and how practical actually this could be in a real scenario, right? What we are trying to achieve, or what businesses, organizations are trying to achieve, is really understand what the core of the problem is and what really needs to be worked upon. Because only then can we really help the consumers and we can go back to changing the ways that we are in. A very high level sentiment analysis is a great place to start. But if you want to drill down further, and if you want to really look at why exactly is positive positive and why exactly is negative negative, you have a new kid on the block, which is called opinion mining. And if you are to start with this, I must say that there is actually a new version of sentiment analysis, v3.1. The one that we've been discussing thus far is v3, version 3, which has all the support for all the features that we've discussed thus far. So you can take single request, batch request. It does all the sentiment analysis, scoring, labeling. You have even container support. But starting v3.1, which is still in preview, I believe, there's a support for opinion mining. And that is a tad bit additional support in this specific problem statement that we have. Let's see how. So usually when we are at crossroads, like we are right now, like we really can't put a finger down and say that, okay, so this is what this person meant, right? So this is absolutely positive, absolutely negative. I'm not completely sure about that. We need a little more help than what traditional or classic sentiment analysis provides us. Welcome opinion mining, and it's otherwise called aspect-based sentiment analysis, or ABSA. The reason is, this is also a text analysis feature. It helps understand the real aspects or the real drivers of that sentiment. Let's talk about that a bit. But before I can actually go into even showing and discussing that, I need to convince you that you need to really mind the opinions, or maybe mind opinions, because we typically are like, why do I need to mind opinions? And I'm not really interested in someone's opinions, right? When it comes to a customer service scenario or a business scenario specifically, think about it. If you have a customer that's going into social media and just posting an opinion out there, it could be an individual opinion. It could also be that that individual opinion is a reflection of a broader viewpoint, that you could have more people thinking the same, right? One reason that you probably should give it some respect. Secondly, knowing which battle to fight. Like when you have a plethora of opinions out there and just so much reviews happening, knowing exactly which one to give priority to and what the issue is and why exactly is very key. It's very key to actually handling those kind of issues. Typically in our industries, the industries, they market the segments based on the backgrounds, sex, the kind of things that they used, etc. So you have different category segments that are just distributed in that way. But if you want to think about having more personalized experiences for audiences who are very engaged, who are like giving you a lot of feedback, who's giving you so much of opinions, if you want to track that and if you want to reward those highly engaged consumers, that's probably something that will help your brand. And again, as we saw, there is just this a huge universe of expressive and emotive data out there, especially with the social media and multiple streams. In fact, I mean, think about it, even just for a business, it gets the kind of streams that it gets inputs from. So you have the external data, of course, and then you have internal data as well. I mean, within the company, you have CRM systems, you've got a lot of internal surveys and tools and everything that brings in all this data. And just given that sheer volume of data, it's probably about time that we had some help on this hand. We just cannot manually do this anymore. right? Even if you wanted to mine the opinions, we needed to have, we can today actually leverage the powerful capabilities of artificial intelligence and text analytics to do that. Let's see how. Now we get to the really interesting part of how do I mine opinions? And really mining for opinions is just as you see in that visual, it's just, but just mining, and mine is just like digging for gold, if you ask me. And it's so vast because it extracts and separates every single aspect in that particular statement. So what are the things that this reviewer talks about? Does he talk about the food? Does he talk about the customer service? Does he talk about the the banquet? Every single thing aspect needs to be taken out, and you have to analyze the sentiment for each and every one of that. So that can be a little overwhelming manually. So, which brings us back to the original problem statement that we had just parked a while back. So now, going back to our poll here, let's see how this would behave if we were to pass it around to our systems. If you use the classic sentiment analysis, obviously you're going to come back getting a negative score for this. But if you want a little more detail as to, why is it said negative, or what can be really done about that, or why exactly was it the way it was, you can use opinion mining features in sentiment analysis. And what it would do is that it would come back and tell you what those specific aspects in the review was. It would tell you that location was a very positive thing, but room was perhaps the negative aspect. Most often than not, we get such kind of reviews of course, in our social media streams, in Twitter and etc. But imagine if you had a chatbot, which is like live interacting with the user, right? And you get these kind of statements. And we've seen a lot of chatbot faux pas over the couple of years now, and the internet is just beaming with the kind of mistakes and the failures that chatbots do, because they don't understand the sentiment, they don't understand the emotion of the user that's putting things across. I'm sure you must have seen this. If a customer says to a very reputed airline, like, thank you for flying me to Calcutta and sending my baggage to Bombay, brilliant service. And the chatbot says, great to hear that. That's a little more trickier than that, but to start with, we can start building really emotionally intelligent chatbots. It can really understand what the user is talking about, and that will sort of craft the bot's response in a way that will be a little more user-friendly and a little more empathetic, if I may. So let's start looking at a demo now, and we're going to start building some things in Visual Studio. A quick check on the time. Doing good. All right, so let's get to Studio. I'm not sure how many of us are familiar with chatbots or with building conversational agents. It's rather very simple if you have to get started today, even with Visual Studio. You can download templates. You just use that in Visual Studio to just file new project, a bot. It could be an echo bot or an empty bot, and so and so. So I've started with a really, really simple bot, and don't worry if you don't have a precedence with conversational agents. The techniques that we are doing here, or we're discussing here, can be actually used and can be employed in any sort of application. You can try this even in a console application, actually. You can try it in a web application and so on. I just prefer to use bots so that it's a little more interactive, a little more meaningful, and you can actually see this live, how this thing really works. So yeah, so before I go into the code, really, I must show you we're in Global Azure Conference, and the Azure part of this whole thing. I said all the magic happens in Azure. It happens with cognitive services and all. So if you have an Azure subscription, one of the things that you can do is go into your Azure subscription today. You can even start a free Azure subscription. And you just need to just create just one resource here, right? So I'm in the create resource thing, and I'm going to go and look for text analytics, which is the cognitive service that I'm looking to create. Okay? where I have text analytics, and that's it. I just need to hit the create button, and it will just ask me for a couple of fields like the app service plan, the resource group, the area, the location that it needs to be in, and it's already inside your subscription. Just 2-3 fields. It'll take a couple of minutes. So for the sake of time, I've actually already created one of those services, and this is my text analytics service. So here in the quick start, you will get to see how you can actually use these services. Again, within text analytics, as we discussed, there's a lot you can do with text analytics, key phrase extraction, entity recognition, etc. But we are going to be interested in sentiment analysis. So let's see how to do that. One of the first things that we need to do is go into keys and endpoint section. And this is where you would get your keys, copy your keys, and this is where you get your endpoint, right? So you copy that endpoint. Once your resource is ready, you have a key and an endpoint, now you're ready for action. So go back into code. Again, this code is actually available in GitHub. I will share the link to that in my references section as well. This is open source. You can go in and you can play with this right away. And but I'm just going to walk you through the code so you can understand how this is done. It's very, very simple. So what I've done is I've put in the credentials, the key and the endpoint here. Quick tip, if it's a production application, kindly do not do this. We'd have to use the key vault or something far more secure than this. This is demos. So put in your key and your endpoint here. And the next thing that we need to do is we need to create a text client. So one of the easiest ways that you can do this using REST APIs, but one of the easiest ways that you can get started with text analytics is by using the text analytics NuGet package. Let me show you how to do that. And you would go to manage NuGet packages. I actually have this installed here. So Azure AI Text Analytics. What you need to do is just browse for text analytics or text, and you'll see Azure AI Text Analytics by Microsoft. Make sure you include the checkbox for pre-release and you install that. So that's how I have it as part of my package here. That's it. So we've created the Azure we've created the text analytics resource and we've added the NuGet package. And that's enough for us to actually create a text client. So there you have it. I've created a text client there by using the endpoint and by using the credentials. And let me just run this for you. You can actually see how this thing works. So again, there are so many ways you can actually test this bot. I prefer to use an emulator. It's a tool that is again available for a download from Microsoft. So this is my locally running bot, my emotionally intelligent bot. It's up and running, and it tells you that, okay, you need to go ahead and you're ready to test this with an emulator. So I've downloaded the emulator and I can test that. And this is my emulator. Let's see. So it has a welcome message for me. Now let's say I just type this hello. So as I said, this is a bot that would identify what the sentiment or the emotion behind my text trace is. It says the sentiment is neutral. These are the scores that it provides. It's a neutral, has got the highest score there. It's got a score of 0.94. Not much positive and very less negative. Of course, hello is a very neutral phrase. We'd agree. Now let's see how we actually accomplished this. It requires a lot of typically I'd say it would require a lot of NLP features like lemmatization and understanding the context, etc., etc. But Azure has really wrapped all this up and just given us the Azure Cognitive Services in ways that you can easily just call this one line of code. So here's where I have my classic sentiment analysis feature that I'm using. The text client that we just created shortly calls a method called analyze sentiment. And this is the input text that I'm passing that I just received from the user. It will return back what is called the document sentiment. Again, You can pass in an entire document, you can pass in like a paragraph of text, you can pass in just one single line of text, etc. If you pass in an entire document, it will come back with the sentiment scores for each and every sentence in that document. So this is what I'm parsing, and I'm actually seeing it on screen. Now, again, as we discussed, this is super trivial. Let's try our specific review. So which was, I love the hotel location, but was, what was she saying? Yes, but was disappointed the room wasn't ready on arrival. Okay, let's see. And if I'm running it, okay, I'm not running it actually. So because this is connected to my local board, I need to connect it and I need to run it every time it says. It's not gonna send it. Let's try that again. Okay, so I love the hotel location, but was disappointed my room wasn't ready on arrival. I'm going to copy that because I probably need that for a long time. All right, so this is what we, of course, expected to see. As I said, if you call the classic sentiment analysis, it returns a sentiment of negative, and it says it's outright a very negative thing. Imagine you've got like loads of such kind of reviews and feedback, and typically where you would see this is probably in a Power BI report where your analytics team is taking a look at this and you've got all these negative, but you don't really know why it's negative, right? Why did the customer say it was negative, or what is causing so much negativity? You do not know. And if you don't know, you would probably not be able to work on the same, right? So let's go back to our drawing boards and let's see what else we can do about it. So in addition to classic sentiment analysis, as we said, in V3.1 version, there's a tiny little feature that came out, which is like so impactful. A lot, again, the same client itself, but instead of calling analyze sentiment, I'm calling analyze sentiment batch, and I'm passing this option as part of the sentiment batch, include opinion mining, and I'm setting it to true. That's all I'm ever doing. Right, and I'm going to pass in the same review, and I'm going to see how it behaves differently. So just to call that out, I'm going to just uncomment this portion. This as well. Okay, let's get that running, and we see if we get any more than this the next time around. Okay, I'm sending the text and I'm waiting for it to respond, and let's see here. There it says, I loved the hotel location but was disappointed my room wasn't ready on arrival. The overall sentiment score is negative on that. And it returns a positive for the hotel location. And it will, likewise, it will return a negative score as well. And so now you know what exactly was positive or what exactly was negative in that. Let me try that again. It should have returned what was negative as well in that. Okay. All right. So here you get to see what exactly is the positive and what exactly you probably see what is negative as well. I'm maybe missing some part here, or maybe not. Okay. So getting such kind of details in terms of the aspects of what exactly was positive, what exactly was negative about a room is very important to sort of work with regards to that situation. Let's try something else as well. So say great food, but the customer service was rude. There, so that was pretty cool. So if I said that great food but the customer service was rude, overall the sentiment is very negative. But we get to see what really was good and bad about it. The food was good, as they said. The customer service was what was the assessment comes out as rude. So that is a very negative portion. Another typical thing that you probably get to say product looked great. And time, but the packaging was clumsy. Right? Very common on Amazon reviews, and you again get to see that the product is very positive. It's a great score. Very happy about it and all, but the clumsy part was about packaging. So that was the negative aspect. Right? So all in all, what we're trying to say is that we get to see the exact aspects that are associated behind this, and not blindly going by a positive sentiment score or a negative sentiment score. Cool. So as much as we are very optimistic about this thing, we must say that there are a few aspects of natural language processing in itself that is still going through a lot of research and a lot of works. Over the years, there's been a lot of improvement in this area and a lot of challenges that have been overcome by researchers and by industry experts, but there's still quite a bit of work that needs to be done in this area. Just in the same examples that we covered, can you imagine someone saying, you're killing it, right? It's actually, we know what it means, and it's a slang, but we know what it means. But chances that, current NLP techniques may not really get it. You tell someone, you nailed it. So that's supposed to be a positive score, especially even you're killing it. But chances, NLP might not get it right now. And likewise, there's just a lot of other things, including like humor and sarcasm is like one of the most discussed topics here in terms of slang and colloquialisms, figures of speech, innuendos. These kinds of things probably the current systems would probably not be able to work, help you with immediately, though there is a lot of work that is happening in these spaces. And it's a long running process, but what we have right now in itself is, I think, a great start to just get started with just beyond sentiment analysis, which is what industry has been doing for a long while now. And we always tend to believe that the greatest fear in the world is that of the opinion of others. But maybe now on, we don't really have to fear those opinions anymore. We just don't have to hide from these opinions anymore. Basically, because not just do you now know what the people feel, you know why they feel what they feel as well, right? So there's no more hiding from opinions. You know specifically why people liked what they liked and they did not like what they did not like. And that gives you an opportunity to sort of work on that. And this is not just for business scenarios, right? This is perfectly applicable for all areas. In organizations that are looking forward to getting employee reviews, and even elections are happening now. It's a perfect political climate, and if our leaders are really, really interested in knowing what is happening in the minds of the electorate and why exactly are they feeling the way that they are feeling, if they have an analysis technique or a mining technique to just look through these, they know exactly what the pain points of the electorate is. So applications and opportunities and possibilities of these techniques are just huge in terms of what we can accomplish using these techniques. Just need to use our minds and our creative capabilities to think of what we can actually do. And this is much, much beyond just a normal customer service scenario, right? Cool. So here are the references to what we've discussed in this section, and I'm sure this will go live and be recorded in YouTube as well. So you can take a look at this later on as well. You have reference to Microsoft Documents, which is a great place to start with and learn these. The AI demos is a link for us to go and test that text analytics part. And the entire repository for my source code is out there in Emotionally Intelligent Bot. So take a look at that, and feel free to connect with me if you have any questions or anything you would want to discuss further on this. But thank you for taking time to join the session again, and I'm happy to take questions. So thank you.